There is nothing more magical than a sunrise at Bryce Canyon as the morning rays creep over the canyon's famous hoodoos.
These layers that make these colorful hoodoos at Bryce Canyon were deposited in a freshwater lake only about 40 million years ago. And much of the modern landscape was coming into existence when the rocks at Bryce Canyon were laid down. A lot of people really like these colorful hoodoos at Bryce because you're very intimate with them when you go there. The park is not large, it's easy to get close to all of the features at Bryce, and sometimes you get this reflected light back onto the hoodoos, and it makes them almost come alive for people when they visit there.
So how did these hoodoos come to be? At the time these ancient lakes existed, this area of the Colorado Plateau was a giant basin, and although water could flow in, there were no rivers to carry the water out. Instead, sediment forming at the bottom of the lakes just kept building up. Kevin Poe, affectionately called the singing geologist, gives talks at Bryce. He compares the sediment to the residue in a bottle containing an instant orange drink. Tang.
Sediment, yes, of course, okay. So here we are on the top of Dutton's Grand Staircase, which he called the Pink Cliffs, which is, I mean, you know, was the guy colorblind? I mean, come on, this is orange, right? Well, it wasn't that he was colorblind, it's just that Dutton never really got very close, as it turns out. When you look at this same layer of rock, clear out on the horizon there's the Powell Point, named for Dutton's boss, John Wesley Powell, and you'll see when you have to look through all that atmosphere disturbance, the rock does kind of turn pink. But when you're sitting right on top of it, it's orange, because of course that was the ingredient iron in this lake system, right? And you know, and it wasn't tang, it was limestone, but limestone, like sugar, does completely dissolve in water up until the saturation point. And so with this lake, more and more limestone being added, kind of like the tang addict, eventually you start to get the sediment forming at the bottom. And instead of orange 47 or whatever the heck this artificial color is, it was the iron that mixed in there to give it that beautiful color. Now the rest of the story is that the Colorado Plateau finally begins to rise. When it rises so that what was a lake basin before gets turned wrong side out. You know, it gets lifted up high, so now the lake drains, and all that ooze left behind could lithify to become the rock and the limestone that is Bryce Canyon. And as I kind of look through your faces here in the audience today, I can see that pretty much none of you really care about that. And that's okay, because they make me say all that stuff at the beginning about how the rock forms, but come on, I know what's really going on. The reason why you paid $25 to get in here is not to know about how the rock formed, but to celebrate how the rock is being destroyed, right? That's what makes us special. Because first of all, we're not even a real canyon. What do you got to have to be a real canyon? Yeah, you got to have a river running through it. And even in a torrential downpour, you know, just water falling from the sky, buckets and buckets, we get a little tiny creek at the bottom. But as soon as the rain stops, well, the creek soaks into the ground, and that's it, okay? What you see out there is carved by water, but it's not flowing water, it's the freezing and thawing of water, frost wedging. So imagine that rock out there with all the different cracks in it. You could take my hand here and pretend it's one of these fins, one of these walls that sticks out, and of course it has cracks like the gaps between my fingers. And now you put some snow on top of it. And so let's say that it's like January, okay? And because even though it's really cold at night, for several hours during the afternoon, it's above freezing. So that snow melts, and as water, it trickles down inside the cracks. And then later at night when it freezes, what happens? It expands, good. As water turns to ice, it expands. But it also does something else. It does, because think about it this way. When water boils, it also expands. But when water freezes, it expands and gets hard. Who said that? I heard it somewhere. Hard, yeah, exactly right. My old mean geology professor used to give us a 0 on the entire exam if you didn't remember get hard. And then what he would say is, decrease your density and get harder. Think about that for a minute, right? There's only one substance in the universe that can do that, and that's water, and that was the point he was trying to make. A spectacular process to, you know, expand and yet get harder. And so as water does this, it starts forcing apart holes in the rock. Eventually that hole becomes so large it can no longer support its weight, and the roof caves in, and the delicate sticky up things on either side, that's a hoodoo. That's how they form. And those hundreds upon thousands of them you see out there were different parts of cracks and holes in rocks and now stand by themselves. So one last song about the ultimate fate of my beloved Bryce Canyon in the loose tradition of Peter, Paul, and Mary. Where will all the hoodoos go? Long time weathering. Where will all the hoodoos go? 3 million years from now. Where will all the hoodoos go? East Sevier River will tear them down. Now you have learned. Now you have learned about the Bryce Rocks. My name is Ranger Poe, and thanks for coming out and rocking today.
Hi, I'm Bill Ambrose. If you like this video, subscribe so we can bring you more programming from our studio. Thank you for subscribing.